In the vast world of gaming, there are rare moments when a title emerges that feels less like a game and more like an experience. A story told through art, music, and gameplay that stays with you long after you've finished it. Neva is one of those rare exceptions, bleeding breathtaking art and haunting music into a journey of loss, growth, and connection. From the creators of Gris, this action platformer feels like stepping into a Ghibli movie, and it's already cemented itself as one of the most impactful games of the previous year.
Game award goes to Neva.
The game begins with a cinematic sequence. A bird, flying free, succumbs to a mysterious force, its body transforming into black roses. A girl named Alba, accompanied by two white wolves, discovers the bird as a liquid plague-like entity approaches, killing everything in its path. Despite their efforts to fight it, Alba is knocked unconscious. When she awakens, she finds one of her wolf companions dead, but its pup, Neva, has luckily survived to accompany her on her future journeys. And so the game begins. The game is split into 4 seasons: summer, fall, winter, and spring. Our journey begins in summer, a season characterized by vibrant hues, lush environments, and underlying sense of innocence. Alba awakens under a sprawling tree surrounded by breathtaking forest, teeming with life. For the first 10 minutes of the game, you will be walking through this absolutely beautiful forest and being accustomed to the movement alongside your dog Neva, whom you will have to help overcome small obstacles, bonding with her as she curiously explores the surroundings, getting distracted by flowers and butterflies along the way. After you pass a giant field of yellow flowers, the game gently introduces its mechanics here. Movement feels fluid, encouraging exploration, while simpler environmental puzzles encourage you to experiment with Alba and Neva's partnership. Combat is introduced gradually, starting with smaller non-threatening enemies to a bit more threatening enemies, seeing as the combat in this game is incredibly simple and only a single time have I managed to die to an enemy, that being the final boss. Alba's attack include a 3-hit combo, a plunging attack, and a piercing attack that can be executed after a dash. While straightforward, the combat system relies on rhythm and precision. Healing is tied to your ability to chain 6 successful hits without taking damage, a mechanic that reinforces a sense of skill-based reward. The narrative subtly shifts as you progress. After an initial encounter with the corrupt creatures, Alba and Neva rest for a bit. When they awaken, the vibrant green forest is overshadowed by darkness and filled with moonlight as all the creatures fall to slumber. As you walk through the forest, you see a big version of an enemy you've already fought, and this game has a lot of foreshadowing, so most of the things you see in the background will appear later in the game. As you venture deeper into the forest, the creature becomes increasingly desperate to stop you, summoning sharp thorny vines from the ground to block your path. Eventually, you arrive at an open field where a chase sequence starts. As you run from the creature, you are forced to dodge growing thorny tendrils while avoiding its attacks. Just as it seems inevitable that you'll be caught, you narrowly escape by tumbling through a hole in the ground. What follows is your first taste of the game's puzzle mechanics that will allow you to dispose of the black thorns blocking your way. With the puzzle solved, you emerge once again on an open field awash with flowers. This time, you won't run from the creature, but rather face it head-on in your first boss encounter. But do not fright, for combat in this game is a joke. The creature's moveset is limited to 2 variations of a slam attack, a shriek that spawns thorns, and a long-range tongue attack, an ability you will recognize from the earlier chase sequence. Defeating the creature doesn't end with its death. Instead, you harness Neva's ability to purify it, transforming the once corrupt being into lush plant life. Flowers that have been tightly closed in the creature's shadow now bloom vibrantly, symbolizing renewal in the wake of destruction. With the battle concluded, summer comes to a bittersweet close, paving the way for challenges and changes of fall. With the arrival of fall, the game takes on a noticeably different tone and increases its difficulty. Alba awakens under the same familiar tree, but the world around her has transformed. The once thriving tree is now infected with black flowers, its health mirroring the world's gradual decline. Neva is no longer a fragile, helpless pup, but has grown into a strong and capable companion, ready to aid you in the challenges ahead. And the lush greens of the summer have given way to the radiant oranges and fiery reds, casting the forest in warmth, with glowing hues that evoke a cozy atmosphere. As you retrace your steps through the familiar areas, the forest reveals its gradual descent into corruption. Enemies are more abundant and aggressive, a stark reminder of the spreading darkness. Once again, you arrive at the vast field of flowers that you passed through in the summer, but this time the once vibrant yellow blossoms have been replaced by the crimson blooms, transforming the landscape into an ocean of blood. It's here that the map takes a drastic turn. Floating islands emerge, altering the terrain, ramping up the platforming challenges and demanding more skill as you navigate this fragmented world. By this point in the game, you've likely begun to fully appreciate Neva's breathtaking artistry, which stands as its most compelling feature. The art style is nothing short of mesmerizing, serving not just as a background, but as an integral part of the game's storytelling. With Neva, the studio set out to push the boundaries of visual design by embracing a unique concept of communicating characters, emotions, and scenes through abstract blotches rather than traditional outlines. This approach creates a dreamlike fluid aesthetic that feels both deliberate and organic. Unlike the soft watercolor palette of their previous title, Gris, Neva opts for bolder and more striking use of colors. Each scene is painted with vivid, saturated hues that create a sharp contrast between light and shadow, highlighting the emotional weight of every moment. For instance, lush greens and vibrant yellows in the summer sequence evoke a sense of innocence and warmth, while the fiery oranges of the fall and mute whites of the winter emphasize the themes of decay and despair. The colors aren't just decorative, they actively contribute to the narrative, reflecting Alba's emotional journey and the state of the world around her, which will be even more apparent later in the game. What truly sets Neva apart, however, is the ability to balance beauty and darkness with its visual design. The creeping corruption that spreads throughout the game is rendered in jagged, ink-like tendrils that starkly contrast with the vibrant and natural landscapes. The game's use of scale is equally impressive. Massive looming structures and oversized creatures dominate the background, instilling a sense of awe and insignificance. Whether it's a towering tree infected by the plague or an ethereal silhouette of an ancient statue, these elements add layers to the depth of the world. Now let's dive back into the game. Around the halfway point, you'll have your first encounter with the game's final boss. The sequence begins as you climb a massive, ancient tree. A cutscene unfolds, showing Alba in a state of distress as the forest around her rapidly withers and dies. The cause of this decay soon reveals itself: a black figure with a white mask, wielding a katana. This ominous enemy I've dubbed the Plague Mother. In the hunting moment, the Plague Mother drives her katana into the ground, and the tree you're climbing begins to decay. As death overtakes the tree, you must outrun the spreading plague. This scene could be heart-pounding, but the tension is undercut by the frustrating mechanic. The plague's speed adjusts to your pace. If you sprint and double jump, it speeds up, and if you move slowly, it slows down. Such deceiving mechanics feel unnecessary and diminish the urgency. Regardless, you eventually reach the top, only for the plague to catch up, sending you plummeting back to the ground below. How Alba survives this catastrophic fall is a question left unanswered, but let's not get lost in the minor details. When she awakens, she finds herself in a dark, fog-filled area. The eerie surroundings are populated with animals frozen in time, their forms distorted and lifeless, bluntly foreshadowing the battles ahead. Your next task is to face the corrupted versions of the forest's creatures. First, you'll battle the boars that were ominously present in the background of both summer and fall. Following this, you'll encounter storks and other smaller birds. It's during these battles that you unlock a new crucial ability, using Neva as a missile. Because if you can toss your magical deer dog at 100 km an hour, is that dog really of use to you? The game then tests this new mechanic against a mini-boss, a lumbering boar with antlers. This menacing foe slowly advances towards you, and the only way to defeat it is by launching Neva at the back of its head. Finally, after dispatching the smaller corrupt creatures, you face a climactic battle against the buck and its partner. This boss fight stands out as one of the game's most memorable moments, largely thanks to its evocative soundtrack. The music creates a sense of awe and gravitas, making you feel like you're up against a formidable foe. However, the buck's movements reveal its frailty. After every attack, it stumbles and falls, showing its exhaustion and desperation. Midway throughout the fight, the dynamic shifts as you are forced to battle both creatures simultaneously. When you finally defeat them, the pair collapses, embracing one another in their final moments as they slowly turn to plant life. It's worth pausing here to discuss the game's clear inspiration from Studio Ghibli, particularly Princess Mononoke. The parallels are impossible to ignore. A girl riding a white magical wolf fighting to protect a dying forest. Even the mystical creature's ability to breathe life back into nature are the same. And the influence doesn't stop there. The developers have confirmed that the enemy design were heavily inspired by No-Face from Spirited Away. Both No-Face's regular and gluttonous forms are represented in various enemies, tying the game even closer to Ghibli's iconic imagery. But just like Ghibli movies, not everything is lighthearted in Neva. After the boss fight, Alba awakens from her slumber to a grim realization. Neva is missing. Desperation sets in as she is abruptly pulled underground. You find yourself descending into a nightmarish realm littered with the corpses of the forest's animals. This unsettling area feels like a vision of hell, with its architecture composed of twisted stone and grotesque forms of the enemies you've faced thus far. The architecture in this area is reminiscent of Elden Ring's area and Near Ilum from its DLC, evoking a deep sense of dread. In this hellish environment, you find Neva grieving over her mother's corpse, which looms in the background. Her flesh is being devoured by the same corrupt creatures you fought thus far to protect the forest. The sight is haunting, but it only grows darker as her mother awakens, transforming the environment into a hellscape bathed in the fiery red glow. As you descend further into this hellish place, the atmosphere becomes even more menacing. Pillars made fully of twisted enemies line your path, while eerie hands and distorted faces seem to watch your every move. The deeper you venture, the more oppressive the surroundings become, until you fall into an area submerged in complete darkness. Here, Neva merges with Alba, providing a light to guide your way. This fusion also grants Alba a new ability. On the final strike on her combo, Neva appears to deliver a more powerful blow, dealing extra damage. After navigating the dark abyss, you fall one last time, landing in an area under a massive blood-red moon. It's here that you face your fallen companion and Neva's mother. This boss fight is both tragic and intense. The creature's attacks include a dash, a slam attack, and a bite, but its patterns are predictable. Despite a high health pool, the fight is manageable because even if you manage to get hit by one of its easily predictable moves, every time you have an opening for your own attack, you will manage to hit the boss exactly 6 times, which will grant you 1 heal. As the battle nears its end, the beast opens its mouth, leaving itself vulnerable. But as you prepare to land a finishing blow, it snaps its jaws shut, jolting Alba awake. She finds herself back near Neva, who sits silently by the graves of the fallen deer. It's then you realize it was all a nightmare. And with that, fall draws to a close, ushering in the arrival of a chilly, foreboding winter. Winter begins with a significant shift. You're now riding Neva, and for the first time, you don't awaken beneath the same familiar tree. Early in the season, as you encounter your first enemy, you also come face to face with Plague Mother on a bridge. The confrontation is brief, as the bridge collapses beneath you after a single strike from the Plague Mother, sending Alba and Neva plummeting into the depths below. To progress further from this point, you'll need to complete 2 distinct puzzle areas. The first is a challenging sequence involving repeating blocks. These blocks serve as both obstacles and weapons, as a new enemy type appears here, pushing them in your direction. Defeating these enemies is straightforward. Either you smash through the block or maneuver around them to attack from behind. Alongside these new foes, you also receive an upgrade to your attacks. Now Neva acts as an extension of your sword, appearing with every strike to deal additional damage. Once you complete the first puzzle, you immediately dive into the second one, set in what is arguably the most stunning area of the game. This mirror-like realm is a testament to video games as a legitimate art form, capable of evoking profound emotion. The shimmering reflections and the surreal beauty make this section unforgettable. However, area is more than just visually striking. It also introduces a unique challenge. Since you can't see objects directly, you must navigate using their reflections, creating the sensation of playing with inverted controls. It's disorienting, but manageable. After emerging from this area, you're joined by a male wolf of the same species as Neva. And you actually saw him a few times before earlier in the winter, once saving you from a fight, and another time when you saved him. He will become your guide, leading you to the summit of the towering structure, adored with statues of the Plague Mother, clearly foreshadowing your final fight. At the top, you encounter the final boss once more. This time, instead of destroying the bridge she's standing on, she summons a colossal creature to chase you. The chase sequence is no different from the first one, except that this time you are riding on top of Neva. However, the creature, born from the Plague Mother herself, matches your pace, quickly closing the gap. Just as the situation becomes dire, the male wolf intervenes, halting the creature's advance. Alba and Neva quickly join him in the fight, ultimately destroying the monstrosity. In the aftermath, a new forest begins to regrow. Here, Neva's journey with Alba comes to an end. Neva is no longer a helpless pup, but a grown wolf. She departs with the male wolf to begin a life of her own, leaving Alba to continue the journey alone. As you ascend towards the final confrontation, the environment grows more hostile. Enemies become increasingly aggressive, and the statues of the final boss appear with greater frequency. Unfortunately, the design of this area lacks variety, with repetitive visuals and a few standout features. One exception is a striking scene with enemies kneeling in worship before a row of massive statues, evoking imagery reminiscent to the final moments of Scorn, where a similar display leads to an ominous gate. However, unlike in Scorn, this area holds no significant secrets, serving only as a prelude to the final boss. Finally, you arrive at a pile of corpses crowned with a gong. Striking the gong reveals a massive structure resembling the Tower of Babel, leading you to a floating mound of bodies. Climbing to the summit, you emerge above the clouds onto a platform where the final boss awaits you in her gluttonous form, feasting upon her followers. Now, I must say that this is the only fun and kinda challenging boss in the entire game. The boss design, while simple, a taller version of the regular enemies wielding a katana, is elevated by her mechanics. She parries all frontal attacks, forcing you to wait for an opening and strike her from behind. The fight demands minimal patience and precision, making her the only boss likely to kill you. At the halfway mark, the boss falls to her knees, seemingly vulnerable. Alba seizes this opportunity to strike, but it's a trap. The boss grabs Alba by the neck, preparing to kill her, when Neva intervenes just in time.
Neva!
Together, Alba and Neva continue the battle. As the boss nears death, she explodes into a burst of energy, momentarily stunning both Alba and Neva. Seizing the opportunity, she grabs Neva and slashes across her eye, attempting a fatal blow. Instead of succumbing, Neva, now blinded, lets out a powerful howl, channeling her energy to heal the boss from within. This act causes the boss to transform into plant life, purging the corruption and restoring balance to the forest. With the Plague Mother defeated, Alba and Neva pause on a cliff overlooking the forest. Before them now lies a landscape transformed. What was once withered and lifeless is now vibrant and teeming with renewal. Alba stands in awe, a tear slipping down her cheek as she takes in the sight of the forest. She fought so hard to save, now thriving once more. With winter gone and the sickness lifted from the forest, spring bursts forth in full bloom, transforming the once dying wilderness into a colorful wonderland teeming with flowers and vibrant hues stretching as far as I can see. You awaken once again under your familiar tree, now joined by a playful new addition, a baby wolf named Vruma. As you stroll through the lively forest with both Bruma and Neva by your side, the world feels brighter and more alive than ever. Bruma, much like Neva in her younger days, is full of curiosity, getting distracted by every flower and fluttering leaf along the path. The tranquil walk leads you to an open field where you're greeted by a familiar scene from the beginning of the game. The joyful music fades into a quiet, somber tone, signaling the start of the game's first cutscene, now playing out with the heartbreaking changes. The Plague Mother returns, seeking revenge after her defeat. In the moment of brutal finality, she pierces Neva with her katana, ending the loyal wolf's life. Yet, in her act of vengeance, the Plague Mother also meets her end, as Neva howls for the final time, transforming the evil being into a tree. As Alba awakens, she finds Neva's lifeless body by the tree. As Alba kneels beside her companion, tears in her eyes, she begins to find peace in Neva's sacrifice as she transforms into a breathtaking cascade of butterflies, understanding its place in the grand cycle of life. And with that, the main story concludes on a bittersweet note. Now I must break your immersion for a moment and take you back here. Near the tree where you awaken, a subtle hint lies on the left. A cluster of white flowers marking a climbable wall. Should your curiosity lead you to scale this path, you'll uncover a secluded area where all the hidden flowers you found throughout the game are gathered in a radiant bloom. If you discovered every single one of them, you're rewarded with an additional cutscene. In this scene, Alba is depicted years later, her hair long and flowing. She gently cradles one of Bruma's many offspring with a peaceful smile on her face. It becomes clear that unlike Neva, Bruma lived a long and fulfilling life, bringing joy to Alba and the forest. But this happiness came at a price, Neva's ultimate sacrifice. The scene perfectly encapsulates the game's overarching themes of the cycle of life and death, and the profound selfless love that comes with parenting. Throughout these moments, the game leaves you with a resonant message. Though loss is inevitable, it is through sacrifice and nurturing that new life blossoms, ensuring the forest and the bonds with it endure. And finally, my thoughts about the game. As I've mentioned before, Neva is undeniably a visual masterpiece. The art style, the sound design, and the animation are stunningly crafted. Every scene looks like a painting, and the sound perfectly matches the emotions of the game. But despite its aesthetic brilliance, Neva is not without its flaws. The combat and platforming, while enjoyable, lacked depth and challenge one might expect from a game of this genre. The mechanics are accessible, but for seasoned players they may feel overly simplistic. While the bosses are well designed and offer variety, the standard enemy roster feels repetitive and limited in scope. Even the final boss, though visually imposing, lacks the emotional and mechanical weight I had hoped for. The challenge was minimal, and its impact didn't quite match the climactic moment the story had been building up towards. Now, let's talk about the emotional aspect of the game. I've seen many players praise Neva for its heart-wrenching story and its ability to leave a profound emotional impact. However, I didn't really experience the same deep connection. Raising Neva from a tiny cub to a grown wolf is a touching idea, but the game's short length and the lack of dialogue made it hard for me to really connect with the characters. Perhaps I'm the minority in this situation, but I found myself yearning for more moments to understand Alba's and Neva's personalities, their struggles, and their connection beyond the surface level. By construct, a game like Nine Souls left a much greater emotional impact on me, largely because it gave its characters room to grow and evolve. Seeing their personalities shift over time created a sense of investment that Neva didn't quite capture. That being said, Neva still manages to explore its themes of life, death, and renewal in a way that resonates with me, even if I didn't get moved as profoundly as others did. One aspect I also want to address is the ending. As I've noticed, it has sparked a lot of confusion among the players. The developers have stated that the game's overarching theme is the cycle of life and death, which has led many to think the story as a literally repeating cycle. However, this isn't the case. The opening cutscene and the ending cutscene are not two separate events in the cycle, but rather the same moment taught with slight variations. The secret cutscenes you unlock by collecting all the hidden flowers further supports this interpretation. In it, we see an older Alba with a group of Bruma's offspring, not just one lone cub like Neva. This shows the passing of time and the cycle of life, proving it's not an endless loop. And finally, if you're seeking for a long and challenging platformer, Neva is definitely not the game for you. Online estimates place its length at about 4 or 5 hours, but for a player with prior platforming experience, it's likely to take less time. Personally, even after collecting every hidden flower, my playthrough clocked in at just 3 hours and 41 minutes. But I can confidently say that those hours were well spent. Neva is a beautifully crafted experience, a testament to artistry of the indie game development. It may not challenge your skill or grip you with its narrative depth, but it offers a captivating journey through a world brought to life with care and love. If you have a bit of free time and an appreciation for indie games, I wholeheartedly recommend giving Neva a try. And that wraps up this video. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If I made any mistakes or missed something important, please let me know in the comments. I'm still learning and always looking to improve. But for now, thanks for watching and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.